It's the
Ma'am,
third
you're sitting on the
deflection
wrong
technique
chair.
you've used in 3 weeks. The first was humor. The second was flattery framed as consultation. The third is this, offering resources, reframing the power dynamic through giving. You do it instinctively. She paused.
Gaslighting,
What are you
triangulation,
deflecting from?
stonewalling. What
The
are you
room was very
deflecting from?
quiet.
I don't know.
Then Ren said, quietly, I don't know. It was the most honest thing he had said to her in 3 weeks. She sat in the wrong chair on purpose. The assistant had pointed to the one nearest the window, cream leather, angled toward the light, and said, "Oh madam, you are sitting on the wrong chair." Clearly the seat reserved for guests meant to feel comfortable. Dara Mensah looked at it, looked at the chair across the room, and sat in that one instead. The man watching her from the doorway smiled. Small. Almost involuntary. Like something had happened that he hadn't planned for, and he wasn't sure yet whether he liked it. His name was Ren. He was 47, worth more money than most countries would see in a decade, and he had just hired Dara to tell him no. Not metaphorically. Literally. That was the job. The offer had come 3 days earlier through Dr. Osei, her former university supervisor, who called on a Wednesday evening while she was eating rice alone and going through case notes. He explained it carefully, the way you explain something you know sounds strange but isn't. A private client. Ultra-high net worth. Not seeking therapy, he had 3 therapists already. Seeking something more specific. An intelligent woman with psychological training who would meet with him weekly, assess him honestly, and refuse to be softened by his wealth, his charm, or the particular gravitational pull of his carefully constructed likability. He wanted someone who could not be bought into gentleness. Dara asked 3 questions. She asked why he couldn't simply find a friend willing to be honest. Dr. Osei said he had tried. Wealth has a way of making honesty expensive for the people around you. Everyone eventually protects their access. She asked whether this was therapeutic work or performance. Dr. Osei said that was precisely why he had recommended her, because she would ask that question. She asked whether the client understood she would not adjust her assessments based on his reactions. Dr. Osei said that was exactly what he was paying for. The fee was more than she earned in 4 months. She said she would think about it. She called back in 40 minutes and said yes, not only because of the money, but because something about the request was the saddest thing she had heard in a long time, and professionally, she had heard very sad things. So there she was. Wrong chair. Notebook open. One good blazer that she rotated through every client meeting because it was the only one she owned. Watching a billionaire recalibrate. Ren crossed the room and sat across from her. He did not comment on the chair. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You're paying me to be here," she said pleasantly. "Thank you isn't necessary." He looked at her. "I'll say it anyway." She wrote something in her notebook. "What did you write?" he asked. "I'll tell you when it becomes relevant," she said. "I'd like to start with a question. Describe the last time someone told you something you didn't want to hear, and how you responded." He thought about it longer than most people would. She noticed that. Then he described a board meeting from 3 years ago, a disagreement about a company acquisition, how he had listened carefully and ultimately made the decision he'd already planned to make. He described it in smooth, managed language, the language of a man who had told this story before, who had shaped it into something comfortable. She listened to every word. What he said mattered less to her than how he said it. The careful architecture of it, the way vulnerability never appeared once in a 3-minute story. That should have contained at least some. "You described what happened," she said. "You didn't describe how you felt." "I felt the decision was correct." "That's not a feeling. That's a conclusion." Silence. Then, almost despite himself, he smiled again. Fuller this time. She did not smile back. She wrote something down. This was week 1. By week 3, she had catalogued his deflection techniques with the precision of someone who had spent years learning to read rooms as a matter of survival. The first was humor, good humor, genuinely funny, designed to make her like him enough to soften her edges. The second was intellectual flattery, asking her opinion on things he already had strong opinions about, making her feel consulted rather than employed. The third arrived when he mentioned casually that his driver was available, that taking the bus seemed inefficient. She looked up from her notebook. "The generosity pivot," she said. He blinked. "I'm sorry?" "It's the third deflection technique you've used in 3 weeks. The first was humor. The second was flattery framed as consultation. The third is this, offering resources, reframing the power dynamic through giving. You do it instinctively." She paused. "What are you deflecting from?" The room was very quiet. Then Ren said, quietly, "I don't know." It was the most honest thing he had said to her in 3 weeks. She wrote it down and told him they were making progress. On the bus home, she sat with the particular satisfaction of work going well, clean, professional, correctly bounded. She had her rules. She had maintained them for 6 years without exception. Never accept gifts outside the agreed fee. Never soften an assessment to protect a client's comfort. Never confuse being needed with being valued. She had written a 4th rule specifically for this engagement, the night before their first meeting, in small letters at the back of her notebook: "Remember where you came from. This house is not your world. His problems are not your problems. You are here to work." She had underlined the last sentence. It was the first time in 6 years she had needed to write a rule down instead of simply knowing it. Week 7 arrived with a shift she did not anticipate. Ren asked, during a rare loosening of the professional structure between them, how she had become so precise about people. She made a calculated decision. A contained truth, shared in a controlled way, professionally acceptable. She told him about her father. A night security guard who read psychology textbooks by torchlight and left them in stacks around the house like furniture. A man who understood human behavior better than most clinicians she had trained under, who never got the room to prove it. She told Ren that she had learned to read people because her father taught her that understanding someone is the closest thing to power that a poor person reliably has access to. Ren listened differently than he usually did. His usual listening was strategic, cataloging, filing, preparing a response. This was quieter. He was receiving rather than collecting. "Is your father still alive?" he asked. "No," she said. 2 years ago." "I'm sorry," he said. No performance in it. No careful construction. Just a plain statement of something true. She closed her notebook. Looked out the window for a moment. Then opened it again and continued. On the bus home, she realized what she had done. She had told him something real. Not damaging, not unprofessional, but real. She examined the distinction carefully for the entire ride, turning it over, checking its edges. She almost convinced herself it was fine. Week 11 should have been routine. Ren was describing a childhood memory. His mother, leaving gradually rather than dramatically, becoming over the course of a year simply a person who lived somewhere else. He described it in his usual measured language. But the cadence shifted. Became careful. The way people speak when they are carrying something fragile and do not want to announce it. Dara prepared her clinical response. She knew exactly what to say. Something precise about avoidant attachment architecture, how early experiences of gradual abandonment map onto adult relationship patterns. It was accurate. It was correct. It was what she would have said to any client in any session. She said something slightly different. 1 degree warmer. Still true. Still professional. But with a single layer of clinical distance quietly removed, the way you remove one brick from a wall without meaning to and tell yourself the wall is still standing. She didn't notice until she was home. She opened her notebook to the 4th rule. Remember where you came from. This house is not your world. His problems are not your problems. You are here to work. She read the underline under the last sentence. It seemed thinner than she remembered. If you're finding yourself genuinely invested in Dara right now, you should be. Drop a comment below and tell me, did she make a mistake saying yes to this job, or was it the right call? And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. Part 2 is where everything breaks open.